What's going on, everybody? Welcome to 4th and 25 with J Ram. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying cool because it's hot, of course, for the month of July. When is it not hot in July? Other than pop up storms. All right. So, welcome aboard. Hope you all had a wonderful Independence Day weekend. If you had an extended weekend, I hope you enjoyed it. Um, whether you were grilling on the water, drinking, or just doing nothing and relaxing. Hope you had a great 4th of July. All right, so we've got a lot to get into today. Big 12 Media Days wrapped up yesterday. That was this week. It's talking season. Media Days are getting underway. This was our first week with the Big 12. Next week we'll have the ACC. I think the Mountain West is next week too. And then later on in the month we'll have the SEC and the Big 10 and all the other conferences. So, all right. So we'll start with putting a wrap on conference games to watch in the fall. We're going to start with, we've got the SEC and the Big 10 left. We're going to do those today. All right, so let's get started. Starting with the SEC. Here's the games I made note of. And look, yes, I love my conference. So there's going to be some weeks where you see probably all of them on here because you just don't know right now. Okay, so we're going to get started here. September 12th. Alabama's at Kentucky. Now, that game may not move the needle to some people, but let's just remember, this is Will Stein's first SEC game as Kentucky's head coach. Alabama's SEC opener. Florida State is looming the next week, so Alabama's going to have that game circled. Are they caught looking ahead? Do they overlook Kentucky? Or do they come in and just blow the doors off Kentucky? Who knows? But be very, very cautious going up to Lexington if you're Alabama. That could be a very weird game, or it could be a blowout. All right, the next week, September 19th, Mississippi State at South Carolina. Now, this game I don't think is going to have a big impact on the SEC race, but both of these coaches are entering this year with some pretty warm seats and disgruntled fan bases. So somebody needs a win here, really, really bad. A loss, and the coach is probably could be finding himself fired before the year's over. So that State South Carolina game could be big on job security. Um, Florida Auburn, very cool to see this game again. A couple of first year coaches, John Summerall and Alex Golesh. His quarterback Byron Brown, Florida's QB, assuming that's going to be Aaron Philo, but this could be a solid matchup of defenses. There could be some Florida's receivers, Auburn's secondary. This could be some interesting little one-on-one matchups, individuals. But that should be a good one. And then, of course, LSU Ole Miss. Do I need to say more? It's Lane Kiffin's return to Oxford. Tensions are going to be high. I hope the fan base acts right. I hope they don't go stupid. I hope they don't act like the Tennessee fans did when Lane was in Knoxville a couple years ago with Ole Miss. I pray it's not as tense and heated, but it's going to be up to the people. So LSU Ole Miss, obviously that's going to be the game of the weekend in college football that weekend. That's where pretty much all the media is going to be. But Oxford will definitely be loud. All right, September 26th, Vanderbilt's at Auburn. Vanderbilt's owned this series recently. They have done very well, and now this is a permanent opponent. Vanderbilt and Auburn, until further notice, is every year. I'm not saying it's a rivalry, but Auburn needs to get back on track and win this game. It's at home, but Vandy's had their number lately. Oklahoma at Georgia. As far as I know, this is the first regular season meeting between these two, or at least the first one in Athens. Last time they played was in the CFP years ago in the Rose Bowl. It was a hell of a game. But Oklahoma, Georgia, looking forward to that. Ole Miss at Florida. Rebels are coming off the LSU game. How will they be with their emotions? Who knows? Florida, of course, coming off the trip to Auburn. So that's going to be a very interesting game. The Swamp has not been good to the Rebels lately. That is a very tough place for them. Texas A&M at LSU. That should be fun. Texas at Tennessee. This is the Longhorns SEC opener. I don't know if they've ever been to Rocky Top right offhand. But Texas at Tennessee, sneaky good game. Texas presumably will be favored to win. I don't have any doubts there. But Tennessee, Rocky Top's going to be loud for that one. South Carolina's at Alabama. Last couple of times the Tide and the Gamecocks have locked up, South Carolina's gave Alabama all they could handle, and very well could have won both meetings, including last year in Columbia. So Tide are going to be wanting to take control of that and not get their butts scared like South Carolina has done to them the last couple of years. So keep an eye on that one. All right, October 3rd, I made note of, looks like 3 games. Auburn is at Tennessee. Florida is at Missouri. Alabama's at Mississippi State. Auburn, Tennessee, kind of like we talked about with Florida and Auburn. It's good to see this one again. At least we're going to get it twice every 4 years because the new schedule, everybody's going to see everybody at least twice every 4 years. That'll be a good one, though. Somebody could get a big win there to help maybe catapult their season. Florida at Missouri. Florida, again, will be coming off of a huge game. I believe that's off. Yeah, that Florida will be coming off the Ole Miss game. Going to Como. Keep an eye on Missouri. I've been telling people, I think Missouri is that sneaky good team that could sneak up and bite you. I love the additions of Austin Simmons and Caden Lee and a few other guys on their defense. They did lose their best pass rusher. He went to Miami. That one's going to be at home, though. Florida better buckle up the chin straps. Alabama, Mississippi State. So good to see the Battle of Highway 82 back on the schedule. This was a series, of course, every year when I grew up in the old SEC West division. Now Alabama's on the series, of course. But Alabama's vulnerable. Starkville will be loud. Unless Mississippi State's just completely falling apart already by here, them Cowboys are going to be rocking, and you know they're going to have an upset on their mind against the Tide because the Tide are vulnerable now. Remember, this ain't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore. So be very, very careful, Alabama, October 3rd. You've been warned. October 10th, Ole Miss at Vanderbilt. Now, obviously, Vandy got gutted. They lost some good pieces. Of course, Pavia, Stowers. But there's still some solid talent, and we'll see where Jared Curtis, the freshman quarterback, is going to be. Of course, by then, we'll have an idea. Ole Miss is going to be coming in. Be careful. Nashville will be ready for you. Ole Miss is that's a game that could very well get caught looking ahead. So keep an eye on that one. Tennessee and Arkansas. This is another one of those games where something weird could happen. Remember, Tennessee went there a couple years ago and lost by a point. Ron Silverfield obviously has a huge rebuild job ahead of him in Fayetteville, but don't sleep on that one. Excuse me just a second. I had to take me a drink. Okay, so anyway, South Carolina at Florida, the Spurrier Bowl, as I like to call it. Good to see that one back on the schedule more. Could South Carolina already be in trouble here, or could Florida be overlooking? Because Florida's at Texas the following week. More on that in a second. Texas A&M at Missouri, another good one. That's in Como. Could have a nice little quarterback battle there with Marcel Reed and Austin Simmons. Could have some very good individual matchups too. LSU at Kentucky, another one of those weird don't overlook games. Just saying. Of course, maybe by then, who knows where these two teams are. But LSU has struggled at Lexington in the past. Of course, also October 10th, the Red River Shootout. That is the only way I'm going to call that game, the Red River Shootout. Texas and Oklahoma in Dallas. Great scene. Half orange, half crimson crowd. The legendary Cotton Bowl Stadium. Would love to go to that game. But yeah, OU Texas, that's going to be huge, of course. Flip over into October the 17th. Auburn and Georgia, obviously one of the Deep South's oldest rivalries. Love this series, even though Georgia's pretty much owned it. Auburn still comes ready to play just about every year. Missouri at Ole Miss. How about this one? Austin Simmons coming back to Oxford. Caden Lee coming back to Oxford. Missouri's offense against Ole Miss's defense. I'll be curious to see that one because Ole Miss returns a lot of production on that defense, and they also added some good portal additions. We'll see where Ahmad Hardy is. Hopefully that young man will get to play the whole year. Hopefully he's recovering well. Alabama, Tennessee. Love that this one has gotten more competitive the last few years. Tennessee has really brought it to them, especially in Knoxville. They've got a couple of wins up there. One against DeBoer's Bama. Could Alabama lose this game in the season spiral? Who knows? Or could Tennessee be in trouble? But anyway, Alabama, Tennessee. Always look forward to that one. Florida at Texas. Remember last year, Florida won 3 games, 4 games. I think they were 4-8. Yeah, I think they were 4-8. But anyway, they were 4-8. Guess who one of their wins was? They beat Texas in Gainesville. Texas was, from what I understood, a little bit tired and I can't remember who they were coming off of, but they were coming off a big game. But you know Texas is going to have revenge on their mind against Florida October 17th. They're going to want payback for that one. Because that game you could debate it cost them a chance to be in the playoff. So revenge will be on the Longhorns' mind October 17th. But are they wore out from the Red River shootout? Who knows? All right, October 24th. Tennessee, South Carolina. Another one of those series that can get weird. Tennessee has lost there before inexplicably when they weren't expected to. Or is South Carolina tuned out by now? Is Shane Beamer fired? Who knows? Oklahoma and Mississippi State. This is one not many people are going to talk about. But Sooners could very well drop, if you drop a road game where you're thinking, how the heck did that happen? This could be that one. Starkville will be ready if State's season ain't completely gone off the rails either. Ole Miss at Texas. Ooh, quarterback showdown. Arch Manning, Trinidad Chambliss. That's going to be fun. Yeah, looking forward to that one. Austin, I think Ole Miss has not played in Austin since like the mid 2010s, and that was when Hugh Freeze was in town. But Ole Miss in Texas could be a big one in the SEC race. We'll see. Texas A&M and Alabama, of course, that's going to be a big one. We'll see where things are by then. Very curious to see Bama's defense trying to contain Marcel Reed for some reason. LSU at Auburn. It has felt so weird these last few years not seeing LSU play Auburn because of the history of this series. They've had some great games, some crazy stuff happen at their games, but they're back on the plains this year. Very interesting. That'll be fun. Vanderbilt at Kentucky. Only reason I've kind of really made note of this one, this could go a long way into helping somebody just get bowl eligible because, I mean, we're expecting a rebuild year at Vandy, and Kentucky's obviously starting over with Will Stein. But it's in Lexington. Vanderbilt can win there. So that could be a good one as far as bowl contention. It's just trying to get to a bowl game at least. October 31st, we've got, this is one of the more calmer weekends, but I did make note of a few games. Missouri at Arkansas. Be careful, Mizzou. Don't let your guard down. You could get upset. But chance for Arkansas maybe to pull them an SEC upset. Auburn at Ole Miss, another series that's so good to see again after being gone for a few years. Ole Miss has fared well, though, against Auburn lately because they've just been the better team and things have fallen their way. But they're at home. Crowds should be loud, but don't overlook Auburn. They're going to be out trying to get their program back on track. Florida, Georgia, the cocktail party. Yes, I still call it the world's largest cocktail party. It is not being played in Jacksonville this year, which is very weird, but that is because they are renovating the Jaguars Stadium in Jacksonville. So this year's game is in Atlanta, and it has a different sponsor name, but I'm not going to read that mess. I'm still going to call it the world's largest cocktail party. Florida, Georgia, October 31st. All right, and then we head into the month of November. We've got a bunch, but here's what I made note of. Texas A&M at South Carolina. You remember this game last year. South Carolina upchucks a huge lead on the road. I think it was 30-3 at halftime, but they upchuck a huge lead, and Texas A&M storms back to win it. That game was freaking nuts. But this one's in Columbia. South Carolina's going to be wanting to get payback, or who knows again, where are they at by then? Are they tuned out? Are they playing for something? Who knows? Alabama, LSU, huge game as always. Lane Kiffin's first taste of this rivalry game, this series, and Baton Rouge as he welcomes DeBoer and the Tide in. Very, very good matchup. We'll see where the two teams are, of course, going into it. Could have huge playoff ramifications. Georgia and Ole Miss. Rebels got Georgia the last time it was in Oxford. I think that was the 28-10 game where Ole Miss kind of shut them down. That was a good one. And then, of course, last year, who can forget the two meetings? The first one in Athens, Georgia won by 8. That game was crazy. It was wild. And then, of course, even more wild was the meeting between the two in the playoff at the Sugar Bowl. in the CFP quarterfinals when Ole Miss won, I think it was 39-34. Trinidad Chin was put on a show, and the Rebels won that one. Georgia has lost 2 of the last 3 against Ole Miss, including the playoff matchup. You know Georgia's going to want payback. Ole Miss is going to be ready to go, and Oxford will be more than likely rocking. Oklahoma, Florida. Could be a very low-scoring game. Who knows? Could be a high-scoring game. It's still weird to me. It's still one of those. I guess maybe this is the old-school fan in me, but seeing Oklahoma playing Florida and realizing it's a conference game is still a little bit crazy to get adjusted to. But Oklahoma, Florida could be good. Texas at Missouri. This is another one of those games. Como could be a tough place to play. Texas better be careful here. Missouri, if everything's going good and they're still in contention and their wheels haven't come off, they could be playing for a big upset. So Texas at Missouri, don't overlook that game, folks. November 14th, Ole Miss at Oklahoma. This was a good one last year in Norman that the Rebels won. This could have CFP ramifications for a large bid. Who knows? Tennessee's at Texas A&M. Could be good. Texas LSU. Sark versus Kiffin. Could it be a top 10 matchup in Baton Rouge? First time as an SEC conference meeting between these two. Could be very, very good between the Longhorns and the Tigers. Who knows? Alabama and Vanderbilt. We all remember what happened the last time Bama was in Nashville when Vandy pulled that huge upset and knocked off number 1 Bama at the time. And then last year, Bama got their revenge, but it was close. And if it wasn't for 2 red zone turnovers, who knows? Vanderbilt might have beat them again. So, but obviously, much different Vanderbilt team. But don't count out a Clark Lee football team. Clark Lee will have his guys ready to go. Auburn at Mississippi State. Could bowl eligibility be on the line here? Could there be nothing on the line here? Who knows? But good to see these two playing again. Florida at Kentucky. Kentucky has won the last 3 in Lexington in this series, guys. They've done well lately against Florida. But Gators come to town. Could be an interesting series game. November 21st, week before Thanksgiving. Georgia at South Carolina. Who knows where we are by then? LSU, Tennessee. The Lane Kiffin tour continues. He's in Oxford on September 19th. And now November 21st, he'll be back in Knoxville. And I can bet you Tennessee fans are going to be so excited to welcome him back. Texas A&M and Oklahoma. This will be a good one. This could have playoff ramifications as well. I think the last time A&M won at Oklahoma was like 1997 or something, way back in the Big 12 days. Vanderbilt going to Florida that day. Could be a good one. Could have some ramifications. Maybe not. Kentucky at Missouri. Maybe it's for pride. Who knows? All right, final week of the season on Black Friday. We've got 2 games here on the day after Thanksgiving. Of course, Mississippi State and Ole Miss, the Egg Bowl. Always a great series. Doesn't matter what the record is. They just don't like each other. You know. Texas A&M. Last year, Texas got them, and it was A&M's only regular season loss. But this time, A&M's going to be wanting to get revenge, and it's at College Station. So, very, very be careful, Texas. You've been warned. But that should be a good one. So 2 good games there on Black Friday. And then finally, on the final Saturday of the regular season, you got Oklahoma at Missouri. That should be fun. I think that could be a really good game. The Iron Bowl, of course, Auburn and Alabama. LSU, Arkansas, the battle for the boot. This one is back to being a permanent series. I always look forward to this game every year on Black Friday when I was young. I think I got a comment. Oh, sorry. Oh, here it is. LSU, Arkansas. I've looked forward to that series every year back in the good old days. Glad it's back to being permanent for the foreseeable future. And then Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's fared really well in that series lately. Should be a lot of fun though. Maybe Vanderbilt's trying to get bowl eligible. Maybe they're just trying to spoil Tennessee's season. Who knows? Okay, so that is SEC conference games to watch this fall. We'll do the Big Ten here in just a second. Okay, so let's do a little bit of talking about Big 12 Media Days. They, of course, were this past week. They were Tuesday and Wednesday at the Ford Center in Frisco, Texas. It's owned by the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's called the Ford Center. But anyway, yeah, Big 12 Media Days was in Frisco this past week, so talking season has begun. I made a quick little note here from everybody. So Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark, a couple of little things I got about him. He's obviously pushing hard for the 2014 playoff. He wants more access. He wants more teams, because if they would have had 24 last year, the league would have had 5 teams in the playoff. Now, y'all know my stance. I'm not for 24, but that's just me. He didn't obviously want to discuss the Brendan Sorsby situation. I applaud him for that. If you have not seen the clip of him and the Texas Tech reporter having that little tense, heated session, please look it up. It's kind of funny. It was a question over the tortilla ban, because at Texas Tech now you can't throw tortillas on the field, which is stupid, but it is what it is. He was talking. A reporter had asked him how come tortillas were banned, but Oklahoma State could do the thing with the paddle that they do that makes a bunch of noise. And I think he asked him why the big Texas Tech fans should trust him or something. But anyway, Yormark didn't take the question too kind, and it got ugly. But he gave him a quick answer and walked off. It was very heated. Okay, so let's go to, and by the way, Monster Energy, as you see in these photos I'm showing real quick, Monster Energy, huge announcement. They are now on a multi-year deal, the title sponsor of this conference. So from now on, the Big 12 is officially known as Monster Energy Big 12 Football. Presents Big 12 Football. So beginning this season, you will see the Monster Energy logo on these 16 schools' jerseys. There'll be patches on their jerseys. And if I'm not mistaken, they're actually going to put their logo on the football field too. So anyway, very, very interesting. Take a swig of my drink. All right, so I'll start with these two coaches. You see Eric Morris at the top. He's Oklahoma State's new head coach. A couple of things I just took note of from him. I love this story he shared about his first team meeting. He had, of course, his 19 players that came with him from North Texas. They were sitting in a group, and the other players, and what he did, he had all the players stand up and go sit with somebody they did not know. And that was a way for him to start building relationships. So I thought, as far as building relationships within the program and the team, I like that. And I love his old school approach also to the similarity of this, as like having the team go together and all go bowling or swimming at his house or have breakfast together, a way to build relationships and chemistry. So I thought that was pretty cool. Shout out to Eric Morris. And then Joey McGuire, who you see at the bottom, Texas Tech's head coach. Let's see. Of course, he talked about the adversity they faced, obviously, with the Sorsby situation, how it brought them closer together. Talked about the strong leadership on his team. Also, some players he believes that he just. Also, he mentioned this. Adam Trick from Miami, Ohio, good transfer on defense. Trey White and Colin Simmons are some players on his defense that he believes are not getting enough talk about. He also praised his quarterback, Will Hammond, and how he's prepared and a great personality, and people gravitate towards him. And plus, he wants to play Texas really bad, and the importance of getting Texas back on the schedule. Okay, so that's those two. Let's do Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State head coach. Kenny said that the conference, of course, obviously needs to start winning in the playoff. Absolutely. Let's see. He also talked about getting the team ready to go to London for the Kansas game. The experience, how it'll be one that they'll always cherish. Expects his receiver room to gel. He has a lot of new faces in that receiver room. Expects them to be fast and dynamic. Let's see. Dave Aranda at Baylor. Let me pull Baylor up. He talked about his relationship with their new QB, DJ Lagway, the Florida transfer, because he actually was recruiting DJ when he was in high school. Praised his great communication skills through football. Because like he'll take these linemen out to eat. He'll go throw with the receivers. Heck, he'll go to Florida and throw with the receivers at the beach. Talked about how great the Baylor fans are, how passionate they are. His vision for the season, obviously, it's a packed stadium with Baylor fans everywhere and making it loud on opponents. And talked about how in the weight room, every squat, every rep, all that kind of stuff, that's the vision you have in mind when you're doing that kind of stuff. So obviously he has a great vision for Baylor football. All right, let's do probably my favorite coach in this conference, Kalani Sitake at BYU. There he is. Just real simple, not being complacent, always wanting more. He talked about his running back, L.J. Morton, and his development, and praised his parents, how they've raised such a good young man. Goals for the team, stay humble and hungry. And he also talked about his quarterback, Barry Beschmeyer, and how he's become such a great leader and has improved his decision making. Scott Frost, UCF's coach, he's right there. He is much more prepared and confident entering year 2 of his return to Orlando because last year was crazy. When he arrived, the portal was already open and guys were signing deals and going to their new schools, and he didn't even have a recruiting staff yet together. Yeah, he didn't have a recruiting department ready. And of course, also his new QB, Alonzo Barnett from JMU, how he's took control of the offense and became a leader really quick. So he praised his quarterback very, very well. All right, next up, let's look at Coach Prime and Coach Willie Fritz. We'll start with Coach Prime at Colorado. He was giving Brett Yormark praise about his outfit. And by the way, shout out to Brett Yormark. Very goodly dressed man. He talked about how he wasn't in the EA Sports video game, saying they didn't pay him enough. Apparently, he really continues to dislike the Athletic. I don't know if they put some false info out on him or what, but he does not like the Athletic. His health, he's full strength after his cancer battle. That is great to know. Excited about his staff. Says this is the best coaching staff he's had since he's been a college coach. So he's got a lot of praise on his new head coaching staff. So looking forward to that. And then Willie Fritz, of course, the head coach at Houston. Talked about his current quarterback, Connor Wigman. He also has a 5-star coming in, and I forgot the young man's name, but he has 2 5-star quarterbacks, and how he's not used to that because he's never had one. But he talked about how unselfish the freshman is and how good team guys they are. And he is very heck bent on believing that he can win a national championship at Houston because Houston has the facilities, they have the support, they have the fans. They're obviously in a great area, a great recruiting area. He is heck bent on believing that he can win a national championship with the Houston Cougars. Okay, so I think that was day 1. Yeah. All right, let's hit day 2. We'll start with Brent Brennan in Arizona. A little something about that I got from him. The first year was very chaotic for him, but then they got used to the Big 12, and now they're ready to roll. Praises his quarterback, Noah Fafita, who's back for his final year. Says he has a Heisman resume. That's very, very good wording. How great a leader he is, and how not just on Saturdays, but how he kicks butt every day of the week at the program, whether it's practice, weight room, team meeting, you name it. But he had obviously big praise for his quarterback, Noah Fafita. And then Scott Satterfield, the Cincinnati head coach. Of course, they got a new QB, J.C. French, coming in from Georgia Southern, where he was phenomenal. Talked about his character, how great character is, how good leadership he was, and how great he was in the spring. He talked about maintaining their non-con rivalry with Miami, Ohio, which you should always want that. How special it is because it's been played, I think, 100-plus years. How much it means to players, the fans in that area, and how it still, fortunately, has been able to continue on despite all the realignment and stuff. Also, a little talk about their opener against Boston College and so many unknowns in that Week 1 showdown. Okay, next up, let's look at Colin Klein at Kansas State, the former Kansas State quarterback. Look very excited to see what he can do as a head coach. First thing, retaining his QB, Avery Johnson, who's really good and how special he is. Great competitor, works hard at his craft, and has a great relationship with him going back to recruiting him. Confidence in his new DC, multiple schemes that they'll be running. Building relationship with players was one of the first things he did when he took the job. And at the end, he talked about his faith and gave thanks to the Lord, to Jesus, and how he's blessed him with this opportunity. Love that. Sonny Dykes, the coach at TCU, he talked about his new QB, Jaden Craig, coming over from Harvard, and how he checks all the football boxes and has way less turnovers. He respects his process. His new OC, who comes over from UConn, he talked about how he watched him at UConn and how it really caught his attention with the system that they ran there. The importance of the rivalry game with Baylor and continuing it, which it will, it's protected, I believe, and talked about all the rivalries in the state of Texas in general and how we needed to continue to play those generational thing. Talking about Texas and Texas Tech, we need TCU and SMU to play every year if we can. We want to try to protect as many of the great rivalries in that state and get them going and not lose them. And then finally, he, of course, discussed their week 0. They have a week. They start a week earlier with the week 0 game against North Carolina. That game's in Ireland. He was talking about preparation for that and what they're going to do to get ready there. Okay, so let's go to Jimmy Rogers, first-year coach at Iowa State. What he's got going on. He talked about his new QB, Jalen Reneur, who had great progression, great leader, smart, had a good spring. And then he was asked why he chose this job, because he was at Washington State, where he was at for only a year. He said the people there are great, wonderful, great leadership at the school with the AD, the president. Their family grew up in South Dakota, southern part of South Dakota, like a few hours from Ames. And he also, of course, wanted the opportunity to compete in a Power 4 conference. Washington State is not in a Power 4 league anymore. Iowa State is. So, of course, the importance of the Iowa State rivalry, the Cy-Hawk Trophy, only scheduled through 2027. I did not know that. So hopefully they can get that worked out. They need to continue to play that game every year. It's a huge game, obviously. All right, and then finally, our last two coaches, Morgan Scalley, the first-year coach at Utah, even though he's been there for like 20 years, as an assistant. Of course, he played there too. Not really much changing in the mentality and identity of the program from Kyle Whittingham. He did discuss how they use this little catchphrase called RSNBH, which is relentless, smart, nasty ball hogs, which is a mouthful, but hey, if it works, it works. There are still the offensive line. Of course, he did discuss their offensive line. They have a whole new starting line. There's competitions at a few positions along that, as they have to replace the entire unit. Mutual respect for BYU, and had that great rivalry, the Holy War, one of the best in the sport. I believe last year there was some kind of deal where Utah fans were getting threats or something, but still a great rivalry. It ain't going nowhere. And he expects to see his quarterback, Devin Dampier, be fully healthy finally. He's battled injuries in the past. And when he's on, Devin Dampier is one of the best in college football. If you have not watched Utah, watch Devin Dampier this fall. All right, and then finally, Rich Rod, West Virginia's coach, Rich Rodriguez. Again, another year of so much new with transfers, recruiting, competition pretty much all over the board at positions other than running back. His quarterback battle, he brought in Michael Hawkins from Oklahoma. We'll see how that goes. He has a fullback, which is something you don't see very often anymore. The challenge of finding fullbacks, he talked about that. They picked up Caden Lewis from Arizona, and he, of course, will fit Rich Rod's scheme very perfect because West Virginia is a run-first, run-heavy team. But it's cool to see fullbacks still. And then trying to maintain the backyard brawl with Pittsburgh. They won't play every year. I think they got a couple years coming up where they won't play, and then they'll be back. But you want to maintain that rivalry as best as you can. And then, of course, it's finally the running back room. He got Cam Cook from Jacksonville State, who led the country in rushing last year. A veteran presence. He's a bell cow. He'll help with that position group. Okay, so that is a wrap from Big 12 Media Days. Now, the ACCs is next week. We will try to get you some stuff from them because I don't think it ends till Friday next week, so might not be able to do but part of the ACC, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll jump into my Big Ten conference games to watch this fall. See you guys in a second. All right, guys, welcome back to 4th and 25 with J-Ram. Hope you guys are having a good day. All right, so just a little bit ago, we did SEC conference games to watch for the fall, and our final one, of course, takes us to the Big Ten, and let's just get it going. So here's what we got in the Big Ten. September 19th, I made note of this one. Purdue headed to UCLA. Purdue's obviously a major rebuild. Terry got jokes. Oh, you're the man, Terry. Purdue headed to UCLA on September 19th. This is Bob Chesney's first conference game as UCLA's head coach. Going to be an exciting time. Purdue's obviously been struggling. It's year 2 of the Barry Odom era as he tries to get them back to respectability. Now, the following week, September 26th, check these out. Oregon at USC, that's going to be huge. That's a big one. Ducks headed to the Coliseum. Iowa and Michigan. Iowa's sneaky good. Probably going to be a preseason top 25 team. Of course, they're going to be great in the trenches, defense, special teams. That can be a low-scoring game, so buckle your chin straps for that one. Minnesota headed up to Washington that day. I think Minnesota's the dark horse team in this league that could surprise a little bit, but they'll have their hands full up there at Husky Stadium. Nebraska at Michigan State. I made note of this one. I'll be interested to see Pat Fitzgerald's crew with an opportunity here to maybe get them a good conference win. Of course, Nebraska, a lot of new. How will their new QB handle a good hostile road trip? October 3rd, Ohio State at Iowa. This is a place that's gave the Buckeyes trouble in the past. Be interesting to see that matchup. That could go a long way with ramifications. Michigan at Minnesota. A potential upset could happen here. Michigan better not go into Minneapolis with a big head. Washington at USC. USC needs to win this game, but I think Washington also a team that's kind of flying under the radar. Keep an eye on the Huskies. That is October 3rd. Let's see. Make sure I give you the right one. October 3rd. So we're going to go to October the 9th, actually. October 9th, a Friday night game. Iowa at Washington. Uh-oh. Say what? Oh, phone cut off. Oh, okay. Make sure I've got my audio still. Here we go. Okay, I guess we still got audio. All right. There we go. All right, October 9th, Iowa at Washington. That's a good little Friday night game. The Hawkeyes headed up to Seattle. That could be fun. October 10th, Indiana and Nebraska. Is this a game where Indiana gets caught looking ahead? Do they overlook this opponent? Remember, they've owned Nebraska lately, big time. So keep an eye on that one. That could be a very good little road trip there. USC at Penn State. That's a huge one in the conference race. Big opportunity for Matt Campbell's crew. With the Trojans coming in, that's going to be a very good game. Let's see, Friday night, the 16th of October. Maybe I'm going off the wall a little bit with this one, but Washington is at Purdue. Could be one of those games where something very weird happens. Just saying. And then October 17th, Ohio State, Indiana. Oh, his phone cut off. Oh, okay. I got you, Terry. Anyway, October 17th, huge game right there. Ohio State is at Indiana, rematch of the Big Ten Championship. That was a great game last year in Indianapolis. Obviously, a lot of new on that Indiana team. So, but Bloomington is going to be rocking. I can go. This is going to be one of the biggest another one of the biggest games in the history of Indiana football. That is a huge game with the Buckeyes coming in. Um, who knows? Maybe the number one seed in the playoff is determined because of this game, or it helps determine it, anyways. But that should be a huge game. Nebraska's at Oregon. Dylan Raiola, his old team coming in. He's not even the starter for Oregon, remind you. He's the backup. But, there'll be some story around that. And then Penn State at Michigan. That's going to be a big one in the conference race. Expect low-scoring football that day. I think that's going to be a low-scoring game. October 24th, Iowa, Minnesota. The Floyd of Rosedale. I love this rivalry. I love that pig that they play for, the bronze pig-looking trophy. Iowa, Minnesota. It does not matter if it's 9-6 in a snowstorm. I love that game. Go UCLA. That is all. Yeah, I just made note of y'all's game against Purdue. I think we'll hit UCLA again here in a minute. But you got a lot of reason to be excited. Iowa, Minnesota, great game. Indiana and Michigan. Last time these two played, I think, was in Bloomington 2 years ago. Indiana hung on. That should be a good one. I love the coaching matchup of Kurt Cignetti versus Kyle Whittingham, too. I think that's going to be cool. Oregon and Illinois. Be careful, Ducks. Be very careful. You're coming off the Nebraska game, and then you're headed up to Champaign. USC lost at Illinois last year. Not an easy place to play at. October 31st, we've got Minnesota and Indiana. I might be a little high on Minnesota, too high on Minnesota here, but never say never. Ohio State at USC. Oh, man. I never thought I would see the day that's a conference game. I feel like I'm talking about the Rose Bowl. But, hey, look, Buckeyes headed the Coliseum. That's going to be a huge football game. That'll go a long way in the conference title race. Wisconsin, Iowa, another great Midwest rivalry. Is Luke Fickell already out by here? Is Wisconsin better than we thought? Have they finally turned the table? Well, who knows? Washington, Nebraska, I think that's a good one for the middle of the pack of the league. Could be a fun game. Washington could get beat. Who knows? Friday, November 6th, Nebraska on a 6-day break is at Illinois. Illinois, tough place to play. They've gave Nebraska trouble before. Just saying. November 7th. Boy, look at a few of these games. Oregon is at Ohio State. Need I say more? This has been a great series since Oregon joined the Big Ten. That's going to be great. In Columbus, Michigan State, Michigan, Pat Fitzgerald against Kyle Whittingham. They both get their first taste of that in-state rivalry. Michigan will probably obviously be favored. UCLA at Minnesota. Crazy things can happen here. Remember, Minnesota's got a really good backfield, good QB. They're still strong in the trenches, and not a bad defense. And by then, it'll be early November. It'll really be starting to get cold up there in Minneapolis. So UCLA better be ready for that one. We'll see how they handle it up there. Penn State at Washington. I think that's a good game, too. Friday, November 13th, Illinois at UCLA. Maybe it doesn't have an effect on the Big Ten race, but it could be for a good bowl trip. It could help with bowl eligibility. Could be a fun football game out there at the Rose Bowl. Very good game. All right. November the 14th, as we put a wrap on this. November 14th, we've got USC headed to Indiana. That's a big one. That'll be another good one. Up in Bloomington, crowd will be ready to roll. Michigan and Oregon, that should be huge up at Eugene. Minnesota, Penn State. Washington at Michigan State. Another one of those weird games. UCLA will avenge themselves against Minnesota. Oh, wow. Yeah, very possible. Very possible. They'll be ready. I think Bob Chesney will have them ready. Minnesota, Penn State, Washington, and Michigan State. Another one of them games. Remember, Washington lost to Wisconsin last year. I think it was 13-10. And we all know how bad Wisconsin was. So Washington could have an inexplicable loss somewhere. And that Michigan State game's on my it's got my eye right now. All right, November 21st, as we hit the final stretch here. Indiana at Washington. How does Kurt Cignetti's crew handle that trip up to the Pacific Northwest? They're going to be coming off the USC game. Be careful. Ohio State at Nebraska. Who knows? UCLA, Michigan. That should be fun. I don't know why, but that one has my attention. Usually when I think UCLA, Michigan basketball comes to mind, but anyway, should be a good matchup though. We'll see how UCLA handles Northern Michigan in the cold. Iowa at Illinois could be sneaky good. Iowa, be careful. Okay, Black Friday, we've got Nebraska, Iowa. That's a yearly tradition. Pretty cool trophy they play for. I think it's called the Legends Trophy. But anyway, Iowa's on that series lately. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Paul Bunyan's Axe. Love the Axe. Does Wisconsin get back on track here? Is Luke Fickell gone? Does he lose this game and get fired? Who knows? But Minnesota, Wisconsin, always look forward to the Axe, Paul Bunyan's Axe. And then finally, November 28th, need I say more? Michigan, Ohio State, one of the greatest rivalries in sports, not just football. One of the greatest rivalries in sports. Is Ohio State trying to lock in a spot in the Big Ten championship here? Who knows? Washington, Oregon, great rivalry in the Pacific Northwest. Is there big ramifications there? And then, of course, the Battle of LA, USC, UCLA. I love it when they both wear the home uniforms in that series. Should be fun between the Trojans and the Bruins. I think UCLA's going to have something for USC. Should be a lot of fun. All right. So that is. Oh, sorry, sinus. I guess my allergies are acting up. That is a wrap on conference games to keep an eye on this fall. We've done that for the last few weeks. All right, so let's move on. We started last week doing a series where I have gave you a few schedules. I let you know how a team did last year, and then I'm letting you know what I'm leaning towards this year, whether it's more wins, fewer wins, or even. These ain't predictions. This is just where I'm leaning. So we're gonna start. I picked a school from each power league plus a G6 team. Oh, Terry's got a question for me. Let's see. So, question: what schools should do home and home jerseys? Ooh, man, that's a good one, Terry. I love it when USC and UCLA do it. I'll tell you what. I wouldn't do this every year, but I would test it. Maybe Oklahoma and Texas. Shout out to Greenwood Nutrition. That drink is delicious. Oklahoma, Texas would be cool, I think, to see them where they both wear the home uniforms. What you got? Oh, Michigan, Ohio State. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that'd be cool to see the blue against the scarlet red. Auburn, Alabama. Yeah, that's some good ones, Terry. I like that. That's a good question. Appreciate you. All right, so let's do our first schedule. Let's look at Houston. I picked them out of the Big 12 to do this week. So Houston last year went 10-3. They beat LSU in the Texas Bowl. Now this schedule is not quite adjusted to what the real schedule is now, because you see Texas Tech right there. That game is actually now September the 18th. Last one is Florida, Georgia. Oh yeah, now that would be cool. Florida's blue and Georgia's red. I'd be all right with that. Or yeah, that would be awesome. Very, very good idea, Terry. I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's pretty cool. So, okay. Houston, this is their schedule. Last year they went 10-3. What was their Big 12 record? Oh, 6-3. 10-3, 6-3 in the Big 12. Beat LSU in the Texas Bowl. This year, here's the schedule. They open up with Oregon State. I hate to pick on the Beavers, but they are terrible. That's the game you're expected to roll. Southern, you win. Now, that Texas Tech game is a Friday night game. This is an old picture, so this has not been updated. I'm sure it's updated on their site now. But Texas Tech, your conference opener, Friday night, September 18th on Fox. That's a huge game. At Georgia Southern, I have no clue why they're going to Georgia Southern, but it's kind of cool they are. You've got UCF coming in. At Kansas State, Oklahoma State, at Utah, your bye week, Cincinnati. Now, that game at Colorado has also been moved to Friday. That is November 13th. That is a Friday night ESPN game, late kick because it's in Boulder. And then at West Virginia and Baylor. So, if you take the bowl out of the equation, they were 9-3. That first month, you should be at least 3-1. Now, if you beat Texas Tech in Lubbock and you start 4-0, the sky's supposed to turn the limit as far as winning the league and getting to the playoffs go. But then you got UCF, which is very winnable. At Kansas State is winnable. You could also lose that game. You got Oklahoma State coming in. That's a good one. Oklahoma State might be a lot better. They're expected to be a lot better. I don't think at Utah that's going to be a tough one. So then that last month is very manageable because you're probably going to be favored in all those games. But there's tricky ones in there, especially there toward the end when you go to West Virginia and you host Baylor. So let's see. They were 9-3. As far as looking at this schedule, I am going to say, as far as where I'm leaning right now, I'm leaning about the same. I could see this being another 9-3 kind of football team. I'm not going to go higher just because, but you look at their backfield, it should be good. They obviously have the good quarterbacks. They got a really good receiver. Defense, not fully sure yet on defense. But 9-3 seems about right. That's at least where I'm leaning right now. This ain't a prediction, but I'm leaning about the same as last year. I could see that. Now, best case scenario and worst case scenario. Best case, I'm going to say everything gels. They managed to win a lot of football games. I'm going to say 10-2 is the best case scenario for Houston. Best case. Maybe you drop the Texas Tech game and then you drop another one, whether it's Utah or K-State or Oklahoma State, something like that, and you win the last month of the season. But I'm going to say the best case scenario is 10-2. Now, your worst case scenario, again, you get hit with injuries, things just go south. I'm going to say 6-6. I don't see them having a losing season. I think 6-6 is their worst case scenario. I'm pretty high on Houston entering this season. 6-6. Best case scenario 10-2. Worst case scenario 6-6. I'm leaning towards the same as last year, which was 9-3, but that is not a final prediction. All right, so that was from the Big 12. Let's go to the G6. I'm going to give you from the reborn Pac-12. Let's look at Boise State. Okay, so last year, Boise State, en route to the Mountain West Championship, finished the season at 9-5, 7-2 in the conference. That's including the title game. But if you take the bowl game and the conference championship out, they were 8-4, 6-2 in the Mountain West. Now, of course, new conference, new home. Don't fully know what to expect. All right, so they're going to open up with the trip to Oregon. For some reason, Boise State loves to give Oregon trouble, even and Eugene. Now, of course, that was a couple years ago. They don't have Ashton Jenney now, but they still have Maddox Madsen and some solid players. Okay, so you're at Oregon. Then you've got Memphis and South Dakota. Don't sleep on that Memphis game, September 12th. That is a big matchup between G6 programs. I think Memphis and Boise could be a very good off-the-radar game nobody's talking about. At Western Michigan, another one. I'm telling you, many people probably think I'm crazy giving a MAC team a lot of love. But Western Michigan is going to be a really good football team. They could be the G6 playoff team too. So, shout out to Boise. 2 really good G6 matchups with Memphis and Western Michigan. All right, conference play. You open it up with Utah State. Then you're at Fresno State. You've got an off week. Then you're at Washington State. You host Texas State. Yes, that is a Pac-12 game. At Colorado State, Oregon State, San Diego State. And then the last week, you see it says flex. The Pac-12, of course, has this flex game thing that they're trying with their schools this year. Their flex game at the moment is at Utah State. So we're going to go assuming that that's who they play, unless they change it, which flex game stuff can change. As far as last year, 8-4, looking at this schedule, I am going to say Sorry about that. I am going to go with, as far as where I'm leaning, I'm going to lean higher because there's still a lot of good players on this team. I still think they're really good at running back. Jaden Virgin Morgan, their defensive end, maybe the best that nobody knows anything about. He'll wreak havoc on quarterbacks and offenses for Boise State. They're going to be a nasty football team. So 8-4 was their record last year. I'm leaning higher than 8-4. I'm leaning better. I really am. Now, best case scenario for the Broncos, you drop the game at Oregon and you win every other game. You're 11-1. That is 11-1 probably is going to send you to the playoff if you win the Pac-12 title. Yeah, I think the schedule is still there for an 11-1 season, possibly. So that's my best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you lose to Oregon. Yes, you lose to Memphis. You lose to Western Michigan. I'm just saying. You're 1-3. Everybody's angry, disgruntled, and you still limp somehow to a 7-5. Because I can't see them having a losing record. I don't know. It's because of the schedule, I guess, maybe. But best case scenario, 11-1. Worst case scenario is 7-5. I think for Boise State, that is going to be my prediction. And as far again, I'm leaning. They were 8-4. I'm leaning better for them this year. I'm leaning towards better for their schedule. All right, next up, let's take a look. We'll move over to the ACC. We're going to do Clemson's schedule. Let's look at the Clemson Tigers and their 2020. Oh, crap. I think I just pressed the wrong team. Yep. All right. Clemson. So last year, Clemson obviously had a very disappointing season with high expectations. They did not meet them. They would, of course, tell you that. They went 7-5 in the regular season, lost their bowl game. I think they played Penn State. Yeah, lost to Penn State. Oh, sorry, I needed a drink real quick. All right, 7-5. Lost the bowl game. They ended up 7-6. Let's take a look at the schedule because it's updated from this graphic. Obviously, a monster opener against LSU needs no introduction. It's going to be huge down in Baton Rouge for Lane Kiffin's debut with LSU. Then you've got Georgia Southern. You got North Carolina and Bill Belichick. A Friday night game at Cal on September 25th. Be careful. Miami's the very next week. Clemson could get caught looking ahead. Sometimes night games way out in Berkeley can be very, very weird. Just saying, Clemson, don't overlook Cal. And then you got the huge game with Miami on October 3rd. Got your bye week. Then you play Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, obviously James Franklin's first year in Blacksburg. You got the trip to Florida State, October 31st. Who knows where Florida State is by then? Is Norvell fired? Who knows? At Syracuse, Georgia Tech. That game at Duke is a Friday night game now, November 20th. Clemson and Duke was a hell of a game last year that Duke pulled off the upset. And then, of course, South Carolina, your arch nemesis. Okay, so real simple here. I'm leaning better. I just do not see Clemson being that down. I mean, yeah, look, they're not one of the nation's elite programs right now anymore. Still a good recruiter. Dabo's actually used the portal a little bit, believe it or not. But look, yeah, they were 7-5 before the bowl game. Yeah, I'm leaning better here. I'm leaning somewhat better. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win double-digit games. I still don't think they're a playoff team. But new QB, a lot of new faces. There are some good players still there, though, and veterans. But I'm not sold as far as being a playoff team. But I do think they're better than 7-5. I'm leaning better. Okay, best case scenario. I'm going to say is 10-2. I'm going to say 10-2 is their best case scenario. You lose in Baton Rouge, and then you drop Miami maybe. And yeah, I'll say 10-2. I don't see 11-1. I say 10-2. And then worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. 7-5. Your same record as last year. 7-5. Yeah. So best case 10-2, worst case 7-5. I'm leaning towards better than their 7-5 record last year. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with Clemson. So that is Clemson. All right. To the Big Ten, let's do the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's take a look at Iowa's schedule. Here we go. All right. So last year, Iowa had a season where they won 9 games overall. They finished they went 8-4 in the regular season. They were 6-3 in the Big Ten. They beat Vanderbilt on the ReliaQuest Bowl. That was actually a crazy game in the second half. But anyway, they beat Vandy in the bowl game to finish 9-4. I still call it the Outback Bowl sometimes. But anyway, so 8-4 in the regular season, 6-3 in the Big Ten. Let's look at their schedule, because this is a team that some have them as a preseason top 25 team, because there's a lot of good pieces here, especially on the trenches, in the defense still. I like the running back room. We'll see how the quarterback position goes for Iowa. Pull their schedule up here. Okay. So your non-con slate, you got Northern Illinois, Iowa State, who's in a major rebuild, and you got Northern Iowa. So there should be no reason that they do not go 3-0 to start the season. Now, after that, oh boy, at Michigan, Ohio State, a Friday night game at Washington. That's your first 3 Big Ten games. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. That's going to be brutal. Then you got your bye week, and then you got your rivalry games at Minnesota and Wisconsin. That's a couple of your rivals. And then you're at Northwestern. Schedule gets a lot more manageable, in my opinion, in the second half of the season, to be honest with you, over that second half of the year. Because after the Minnesota trip, you got Wisconsin, who's down, at Northwestern, who's Purdue, who's pretty bad right now, at Illinois. Now that's going to be a tough one. And then, of course, the Nebraska game on Black Friday. So, looking at the schedule, am I leaning higher or lower or even? I'm going to say I'm leaning above. I'm going more as far as what I'm leaning. I'm leaning higher than 8-4. Maybe not much, if that tells you anything. But I'm leaning slightly higher right now, because I think this is going to be a pretty good football team that could be a playoff at large contender. Maybe not. I don't know. But I'm leaning higher. So, best case scenario and worst case scenario. Best case, I still think you win the 3 non-con games. If you find a way to win one of that 3-game stretch with Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington, that's going to be impressive itself. I tell you what, I'm going to say best case scenario is 10-2. I think 10-2 is the best case scenario with the schedule. Worst case scenario, I still think you win the 3 non-con. Worst case scenario, wheels fall off, 6-6. Yeah, I'm gonna say 6-6. I don't know. You know what? I'll even go a little further. Just the nightmarish, nuke it, apocalyptic scenario, 5-7. Yeah, I don't see a Kirk Fernett's team going 5-7, but I'm just gonna put that was my worst case scenario. So best case scenario for Iowa is 10-2. Worst case scenario, 5-7. As far as leaning, I'm actually leaning better at this moment than what they did last year when they went 8-4, because I think Iowa's going to be pretty good. All right, our final schedule for today. Let's look at the Tennessee Volunteers and what they're facing heading into the fall. Last year, Tennessee, I believe, finished 8-5 after they lost the Music City Bowl. Let me check real quick. To Illinois. Okay, yeah, last year they went 8-5, lost the Music City Bowl to Illinois. 8-4 in the regular season. They were 4-4 in the SEC. So let's take a look at their schedule. They're going to open with Furman. You should win that game. Big non-con game at Georgia Tech on September 12th. I think that's going to be a fun game. Yeah, Atlanta should have a good crowd for that one. I'm excited for Tennessee and Georgia Tech. Kennesaw State, reigning Conference USA champs. You should still win that game. Texas. Ooh, what a SEC opener. Texas coming into Neyland Stadium. Going to be a lot of orange. Ooh, a lot of orange. If you don't like the color orange, you may not want to watch that game. And then you got Auburn coming in. That's a big one. That should be a good one. And then you got to go to Arkansas. You got Alabama, obviously the rivalry game. That's going to be huge. You're coming off the Alabama game and you go to South Carolina. Be careful. Like I said earlier, Columbia can give Tennessee trouble. And then you got your bye week, and then you got Kentucky, and then back-to-back games against at A&M and LSU at home. Kiffin coming back again to Knoxville. That's a big one. And then, of course, the Vanderbilt game to close out. So, I don't know what this offense is going to look like. They're going to have a new QB. Aguilar didn't get his extra year of eligibility. I think Tennessee's going to have to rely on their defense, especially at least in the first half of the season, because they obviously got Jim Knowles at DC. He comes over from Penn State. Brought a few guys with him, some really good players. Now, one of those guys, unfortunately, I can't remember which one it is right off the top of my head, but one of them left the program. And, of course, he will not be playing. But they're still solid pieces. Tennessee's going to be defense first, at least in the first half of the season. So, starting with better or fewer or even 8-4 last year, looking at this schedule, I am going to say do I dare say I'm leaning about the same. I thought about fewer, but I'm just going to say the same at the moment. I'm leaning towards about the even from where they were last year, which they were 8-4. So if I had to predict, I'd be leaning about in that territory right now. Now, let's look at the best case scenario. Your best case scenario, you win that game at Georgia Tech. You're 3-0 going into that Texas game. I'm going to say your best case scenario is you're 5-1 going to Bama. I just don't see 6-0. I just do not. It might sound crazy, but best case scenario, you start 5-1 going into the Bama game. 10-2. Yeah, I'm going to go 10-2 because that SEC schedule just does not feel like one that could go 11-1. So, yeah, best case scenario, 10-2 for the Vols. As far as your worst case scenario, I'm going to say worst case is 6-6. I almost went 5-7, but I'm gonna say 6-6. Yeah. I'm gonna say your best case scenario is you win 10 games, you go to the playoff possibly, and then worst case is 6-6. And as far as the 8-4 from last year, I'm leaning about the same for this upcoming season, but that of course is subject to change. Okie dokie. All right, so that is our schedule wrap for the week. We'll do 5 more of those next week. I'll get to looking at those later. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our FCS rivalry spotlight, we're going to take a look at Harvard versus Yale. The Harvard-Yale game, a very, very long-played game that goes back many a moons. If you've never seen this game, I understand, but man, there's a lot of great history here. This game's been played a very, very long time. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, that's going to be our next segment, is our FCS rivalry spotlight. We'll take a look at Harvard and Yale. See you guys in just a few, and see you guys in a minute.
Andrew Anderson, spitting truth that just can't wait. Got a podcast, like a punch right to your face. College sports villain, taking it over the place. I bring the facts whether you like it or not. Dropping truth bombs, giving it all I got. They call me a villain. Well, I wear that badge with pride. Nothing but secrets they try to hide. Hard rock in my veins, rebellious to the core. I won't back down, won't take it anymore. The bad guy of the podcast world, that's me.
All right, guys. Welcome back to 4th and 25 with Jerry. I'm sorry, I've been stopped up today. It's kind of allergies are acting up or something. All right, so for the last few weeks, we've been doing a little thing called a FCS rivalry spotlight. And before that, we looked at some rivalries that were lost over the last several years because of realignment. But we changed over to our FCS rivalry spotlight. And last week we did the oldest played series in college football, Lehigh and Lafayette, or as they like to call it, the rivalry. This week, we're going to take a look at another obviously really old one. It's called The Game. And that is the great legendary rivalry of Harvard versus Yale. The Game. Here's a couple of graphics I got from over the years. I love these old pictures like this from back in the day. Look at them uniforms. So freaking cool. Okay. I think my AirPods are getting low. Alright. So here's Harvard and Yale, the rivalry. They played 141 games. Yale leads the record series 72, 61, and 8. Their first meeting was in 1875, and that was won by Harvard. Yes, that score is right. It was 4-0. I believe they were playing more of a rugby style game at that time. But anyway, Harvard won the first one 4-0. The most recent meeting, Yale won 45-28, and that was this past season, back in November. Largest victory was in 1957. Yale won 54-0. You know they bragged about that. Harvard has the longest winning streak in the series from 2007 to 2015 at 9 games. And Yale currently has a 4-game winning streak in that series, so you know that's biting Harvard. Okay. Though the winner does not take possession of a physical prize, the matchup is usually considered the most anticipated game of the year for both teams, regardless of their record. The football rivalry is among the most admired in America. The schools and the rivalry established the template for the sport as we know it today. Kind of blah, 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 a little bit of this. Let's see. Sports Illustrated rated it as the 6th best among American athletic college rivalries, only behind the Iron Bowl, Duke and North Carolina, USC, UCLA, Army, Navy, and Cal Stanford. The rivalry was ranked 8th among Athlon Sports' top 25 rivalries in the history of college football, so that's pretty good itself. Their first game was played in 1875, and it was a rugby contest. In fact, it was called football. Played November 13th in New Haven at Hamilton Park. Harvard won 4-0. It was the football match was played under concessionary rules. Harvard conceded to the aspects of soccer-like football played by Yale, while Yale conceded likewise to Harvard's rugby style and form play, featured in the Harvard-McGill game earlier in 1874. So just kind of skipping over some of this. Let's take a look at November 1949. Okay. November 19th, the 1949 game, Yale won 29-6, led by Levy Jackson, its first African-American captain. Jackson was born in Bradford, Connecticut, and reared in New Haven. He was a graduate of that school, of Hillhouse High School. Jackson had been a sergeant in the U.S. Army Ordnance Corps during World War II before matriculating at Yale. Jackson scored the day's first and second touchdowns. Another game I made note of, the 1975 game on November 22nd, the outcome elevating Harvard to its first undisputed Ivy League championship. It had shared titles 3 other years since 1956, the first year of the Ivy League. This would feature Chicago Bears teammates and Harvard captain Dan Jiggets and Yale captain Gary Finick. Finick helped win Super Bowl 20 for the Bears and also a gold record for the Titans. Harvard would win the game 10-7 on a fourth quarter field goal by Mike Lynch with 33 seconds left on the official game clock. Let's see. November 20th. Wait. Let me find this. I'm sorry, y'all. We're having a little issue here. November 20th, 1999, quarterback Eric Walland and receiver Eric Johnson set single-game Yale records for passing, pass attempts, and completions as they threw for 437 yards, completed 42 out of 67, and the receiver, Eric Johnson, had 21 catches for 244 yards. Yale won the contest on a touchdown pass with 29 seconds left. Yale won the game before and the year after as part of a winning streak. In 2014, I'm all over the place. Oh, I missed that one. All right, in 2014, Connor Hempel completed a 35-yard pass to Andrew Fisher with 55 seconds left, and Harvard won 31-24. Harvard would win the outright league title on November 22nd. A Yale win would have created a three-way tie for the title among them plus Dartmouth. Harvard led 24-7 at the end of the third quarter. Harvard finished the year ranked several top 20 polls for the NCAA division, which was FCS at the time. The Emmy-winning, and check this one out, the Emmy Award-winning ESPN College Game Day was broadcast from Boston. Lee Corso picked Yale to win on the premier pregame show. A little more than a week before the contest, Yale students protested the cost of the football program, particularly given the recent poor record. Thankfully, they did not get rid of it. Tyler Varga gained 127 yards on 30 carries and scored 2 touchdowns for Yale, but Harvard completed the season undefeated and untied the third time during Tim Murphy's tenure as head coach. And then finally, we'll do one more here. We'll look at the 2025 game, of course. If I can find my graphics. My graphics are all over the place. All right, here we go. 2025, last year's meeting between these two. Yeah, it was the 141st meeting. Featured undefeated Harvard facing Yale, who had 1 conference loss, in a game in which a Harvard win gives the Crimson an undefeated regular season, sole possession of the Ivy League championship, and the first ever automatic bid to the NCAA FCS playoffs for the Ivy League. Harvard achieved none of those goals. Yale won its 4th straight in the series, winning the game 45-28. Yale's upset win gave Yale a share of the Ivy League title, and they received the automatic bid to the FCS playoffs as champion. However, Harvard did accept in a large bid to the tournament, and they would both go on to the playoffs. So cool, the FCS is finally, as the Ivy League is now playing in the FCS playoffs. So anyway, here's a quick look at that series. This was one of Yale's wins. This might have been last year's, actually. But just some pictures of the legendary Harvard-Yale football rivalry. I actually remember playing this on one of the old NCAA video games. But yeah, Harvard and Yale. So that's a look back on that. All right, so we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to do our final season review series. Our final one of those is we'll look back at the 2014 college football season. And it was obviously a big-time year because it was the very first year of the college football playoff back when we had the 4-team field. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll jump into that. See you guys in just a little bit.
Circling eternally, come and help me from this insanity. Where am I disgrace? I hate to see your face. I wanna see you drown in your sorrow. You know I'm not the same. I'm fading away. I'm falling into my grave.
Oh, man. All right, welcome back, y'all, to 4th through 25. I'm trying to upload some graphics real quick, and then we're going to get started on our final season review series of this little series we've been doing for a while, where we look back on college football seasons of the past. Waiting on this stuff. Wait, give me just a second. Hopefully we don't have no trouble. All right. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. All right, guys. Hopefully we got everything. I don't know. I hope we did. All right. So the 2014 college football season. This is our final one we're going to do. before we shift gears to other stuff. So this season featured a lot of new. Um, the regular season started August 27th, ended December 13th. This, of course, marked major changes. This was the first of the CFP era as it replaced the BCS. As we say goodbye to that. All right, so this was a big year in conference realignment as a lot of schools changed conferences this year, that season. Let me try to find it. Here it is. Okay, so this season, this was what happened as far as the realignment stuff. The Sun Belt got Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, Idaho, New Mexico State. All four moved to the Sun Belt. The ACC picked up Louisville, been a great addition for them. The American would pick up East Carolina, Tulane, and Tulsa. Conference USA picked up Old Dominion, Western Kentucky, and then the Big Ten picked up Maryland and Rutgers. Maryland should still be in the ACC, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, that is what happened with realignment that year. Next up, let's take a look at... We're going to do this one just a little bit different than what we've done in the past ones. Kind of bear with me here. These things are jumbled up all over the place. Alright, so we'll do this. FCS wins over FBS. FIU was stunned at home by Bethune-Cookman that year, 14-12. North Dakota State went to Iowa State and beat them 34-14. Now we're not shocked about that, just considering how great North Dakota State's become. Eastern Kentucky beat Miami, Ohio that year. Abilene Christian beat Troy that year. Indiana State beat Ball State that year. Northwestern State beat Louisiana Tech that year, 30-27. And then let's see, Army lost to Yale, and Appalachian State lost to Austin Peay that year. So, had a couple of some FCS over FBS upsets. Okay. So this one's a little bit different compared to the season layouts of the past. So we're just going to kind of go through some dates and some stuff that happened that year. September 8th, the NCAA restored Penn State's postseason eligibility effective immediately. Then full complement of 85 scholarships. This means Penn State was able to go to a bowl. They had been banned from the postseason from 2012 through 2015 because of the famous Jerry Sandusky scandal. October 4th, for the first time since week 11 of 1990, 4 teams ranked in the top 6 of the AP lost that week. Additionally, 5 of the top 8 lost in the same week for the first time ever. There was a buttload of upsets. It started that week on that Thursday night when number 2 Oregon lost to Arizona at home, 31-24. Number 3 Alabama lost to number 11 Ole Miss, 23-17. I remember that game very well. Number 4 Oklahoma lost to number 25 TCU, 37-33. Number 6 Texas A&M lost at number 12 Mississippi State that day, 48-31. Number 8 UCLA would lose at home to Utah, 30-28. Let's see. Okay. October 12th. Let's see. These are kind of all over the place. Y'all just bear with me. I'm sorry about that. October 12th, the release of the AP Week 8 AP poll saw Mississippi State, previously tied for number 3 cross-state rival Ole Miss, leapfrog Florida State, and Mississippi State was the number 1 team in the country. It's crazy to think. They had just beat number 2 Auburn at home 38-23. It was the Bulldogs' 3rd straight win over a team ranked in the top 10. Most significantly, the Bulldogs became the first team in the history of the AP poll to go from unranked to number 1 in 5 weeks, surpassing the previous record of 6 weeks set by Ohio State way back in 1954. October 18th, Marshall quarterback Rakeem Caddo threw 4 touchdowns in their 45-13 win over FIU, giving him a touchdown pass in 39 straight games. This broke the FBS record of 38 held by Russell Wilson, who threw for a touchdown in 38 straight games when he was at NC State and then Wisconsin. Cato went on to finish. Cato went on to finish the season in his Marshall career in the Boca Raton Bowl with a streak of 46 games, tying all divisions NCAA record of the all-time NCAA record of Central Washington's Mike Riley. November 16th, Wisconsin running back Melvin Gordon set an FBS record 408 yards rushing for Wisconsin in their 59-24 win over Nebraska that day. The previous record was 406, set by the legendary LaDainian Tomlinson of TCU way back in 1999. But yeah, Melvin Gordon had a great day that day, 404, running the ball for 408. Holy cow. November 22nd, and this was crazy. Melvin Gordon's single game record, which was set just a week earlier, was broke again as Oklahoma's Samaj Puran ran for 427 yards in Oklahoma's 44-7 win over Kansas. That's crazy. He had a record for 1 week and it was broke. I know I'm all over the place with these. Let's see. I am all over the place. Sorry, guys. I did not mean for this to happen. Alright. Okay. November 29th, Louisville safety Gerard Holloman intercepted his 14th pass of the year. This was tying the single-season FBS record set in 1968 by Washington's Al Worley. The interception in the final minute sealed Louisville's 44-40 win over arch-rival Kentucky. November 30th. Let's see. November 30th, police in Columbus, Ohio, discovered the body of an Ohio State walk-on, but he had yet to play a game. Apparently, it was a self-inflicted gunshot. He had complained about post-concussion symptoms. December 2nd, this was a rough year for UAB as they had announced they would drop football at the end of the year. They became bowl eligible under Bill Clark after beating Southern Miss. Thankfully, they would bring football back in 2017. Let's see. Colorado State got a new stadium. The Big 12 had been planning to expand its conference. This was the first time they met with Cincinnati. Nothing materialized. End of the year. Here's who won the conferences. Memphis, Cincinnati, and UCF would tie for the AAC championship. They were all 7-1. Memphis got the tiebreaker. Florida State would win the ACC, beating Georgia Tech in the ACC title game. Ohio State would beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship. The Big 12 did not have a title game that year. Baylor and TCU both finished 8-1 and conference co-champions. Baylor would get the tiebreaker because they beat TCU at the regular season. Marshall beat Louisiana Tech in the Conference USA Championship. Northern Illinois beat Bowling Green to win the MAC Championship. Boise State beat Fresno State to win the Mountain West Championship. Oregon beat Arizona to win the Pac-12 Championship. Alabama beat Missouri in the SEC Championship. Georgia Southern technically won the Sun Belt, but was ineligible for the postseason due to transition rules. And then Notre Dame, Navy, and BYU were the best independents, and they all went 8-5. Okay, and then as far as the Heisman Trophy, it went to Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota, and it wasn't even close, as he got 788 first-place votes, way ahead of Wisconsin running back Melvin Gordon. But that was your Heisman order. Mariota finished first, Gordon was second, Amari Cooper was third, Alabama receiver, TCU quarterback Trevon Boykin, and Ohio State quarterback J.T. Barrett. That was your Heisman list. And then as far as other things, let's see. Some award winners. Ezekiel Elliott of Ohio State won the Archie Griffin Award. Marcus Mariota was the AP Player of the Year. Also the Chick Harley Award, and the Maxwell Award, and the Sports Nation Player of the Year. Walter Camp Player of the Year. He took home a buttload of awards. The Burswood Trophy, which went to the best player who started as a walk-on, Justin Hardy of East Carolina. Shaq Thompson of Washington was the most versatile player, Paul Hornung Award. The Campbell Trophy went to David Hilton of Duke, the academic Heisman. The Danny Werfel Trophy, which went to the best humanitarian athlete, Deterian Shackelford of Ole Miss. Let's see. Okay, so Marcus Mariota also took home the Davy O'Brien Award, Johnny Unitas Award. Trevon Boykin took home the Kellen Moore Award. The Manning Award also went to Mariota. The Sammy Baugh Trophy, which went to the best passing quarterback, went to Brandon Daltrey at Western Kentucky. He put up hellacious numbers. As far as running back, Melvin Gordon took home the Doak Walker Award and the Jim Brown Trophy. Amari Cooper of Alabama took home the Biletnikoff Award and the Paul Warfield Trophy. Both, of course, go to wide receivers. And then, as far as the tight ends, Florida State's Nick O'Leary took home the John Mackey Award and the Ozzie Newsome Award. Lineman Reese Dismukes of Auburn took home the Dave Remington Trophy that year. Brandon Sheriff of Iowa took the Outland Trophy. Reese Dismukes of Auburn took home the Jim Parker Trophy. And on the defensive side, Scooby Wright, Arizona, holy cow, took home the Chuck Bednarik Award and the Bronco Nagurski Award. Eric Kendricks of UCLA took the Lott Trophy, so that's some defensive awards. D-line, best D-line, Joey Bosa of Ohio State, remember that name, took home the Bill Willis Award. Eric Kendricks of UCLA also took home the Dick Butkus Award. Let's see. Defensive back. Oh, by the way, the Lombardi Award, Scooby Wright. Jack Lambert Trophy, Scooby Wright. Nate Orchard of Utah took the Ted Hendricks Award. And then as far as DBs, Gerard Holman of Louisville took home the Jim Thorpe Award and the Jack Tatum Trophy. Special teams, Lou Groza Award winner was Brad Craddock of Maryland. Robert Agu of Florida State was the Vlade Award. Tom Hackett of Utah took home the Ray Guy Award. Tyler Lockett of Kansas State took home the Jet Award for Best Return Specialist. And as you see at the bottom, the Coach of the Year trophies. Gary Patterson of TCU took them all. AFCA AP Coach of the Year. And the Bobby Bowden National Collegiate Coach of the Year Award, because TCU had a hellaciously good season. Let's see, some other ones. Nick Saban took home Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year. Gary Patterson took the Eddie Robertson Award. Dan Mullen of Mississippi State took home the Maxwell Coach of the Year Award that year. Some more Gary Patterson trophies. Paul Bear Bryant, Liberty Mutual Coach, Sports Nation Coach, Home Depot Coach of the Year, Woody Hayes Trophy, Walter Camp Trophy, and then some couple of awards I never mentioned. The Gary Campbell of Oregon took home AFCA Assistant Coach, and then the Broyles Award went to Tom Herman of Ohio State. All right. Consensus All-Americans. We had a nice little list of them, as you see right here. Joey Bosa of Ohio State, defensive line, was one. Tevin Coleman, running back at Oregon. Alabama receiver Amari Cooper, and DB Landon Collins. Ole Miss DB Senquez Golson. Wisconsin running back Melvin Gordon. Louisville DB Jared Hallman. Florida State lineman Trey Jackson. Washington linebacker Apollo. Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota, of course. Iowa lineman Brandon Schiff. Arizona linebacker Scooby Wright. Okay, make sure I've got polls here. Let's see. Is this the playoff poll? Okay, so the final CFP top 20 before the postseason, as you see right here, it was Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, and Ohio State. Those four went to the playoff. Then you had Baylor, TCU, Mississippi State, Michigan State, Ole Miss, Arizona, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Georgia, UCLA, Arizona State, Missouri, Clemson, Wisconsin, Auburn, and Boise State. Now, as far as the postseason goes, here is the bowl games. Lafayette beat Nevada in the New Orleans Bowl, 16-3. Utah State beat UTEP. That was the New Mexico Bowl, 21-6. Las Vegas Bowl, Utah beat Colorado State 45-10. Air Force beat Western Michigan in the Potato Bowl 38-24. Bowling Green beat South Alabama 33-28 in the first Camellia Bowl. Miami Beach Bowl, Memphis beat BYU. That was a good game, 55-48 in two overtimes. Had a big fight at the end. I remember that. Marshall beat Northern Illinois in the Boca Raton Bowl. Navy beat San Diego State in the Poinsettia Bowl. Western Kentucky beat Central Michigan in what was a crazy Bahamas Bowl. Rice beat Fresno in the Hawaii Bowl. Louisiana Tech beat Illinois that year in the Heart of Dallas Bowl. These are going to be a little out of order, I'm afraid. The Quick Lane Bowl, Rutgers beat North Carolina. NC State beat UCF in the St. Petersburg Bowl. Virginia Tech beat Cincinnati in the Military Bowl. Arizona State beat Duke in the Sun Bowl. Ironic, they played last year in that game. South Carolina beat Miami in what was a very rainy Independence Bowl. I remember that. Penn State beat Boston College by 1 point in a very good pinstripe bowl. Holiday Bowl, USC beat Nebraska. That was a great game, 45-42. Texas A&M beat West Virginia in the Liberty Bowl. I was at that game. I went to that game. It was pretty cold, but I loved it. Clemson beat Oklahoma in the Russell Athletic Bowl. Arkansas clobbered Texas in the Texas Bowl. Notre Dame beat LSU in the Music City Bowl. Georgia beat Louisville that year in the Belk Bowl. Let's see. Stanford beat Maryland in the Foster Farms Bowl. Wisconsin would beat Auburn in the Outback Bowl that year. Missouri beat Minnesota in the Citrus Bowl. And these next couple games, I think, were January 2nd. Houston beat Pitt in the Armed Forces Bowl. Tennessee beat Iowa in the Gator Bowl. UCLA beat Kansas State in a really good Alamo Bowl. Cactus Bowl, we saw Oklahoma State beat Washington. Florida beat East Carolina in the Birmingham Bowl. That was a good game. Toledo beat Arkansas State in the GoDaddy Bowl. And then in the New Year's Six, the non-playoff bowls, we saw TCU destroy Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl. Boise State beat Arizona in the Fiesta Bowl. Georgia Tech would beat Mississippi State at the Orange Bowl. Michigan State beat Baylor in a really crazy Cotton Bowl. I remember that game, 42-41. And then, of course, your CFP. The Rose Bowl, we saw Oregon clobber Florida State. The Sugar Bowl, Ohio State would beat Alabama in a hell of a football game. And then finally, in the national championship, Ohio State would cruise as they beat Oregon 42-20, solidifying the Ohio State Buckeyes as your 2014-2015 national champions. Here's a graphic from that game. It was played at AT&T Stadium. Some really good players on that team, including Ezekiel Elliott, JT Barlett, Joey Bosa, and those guys. Cardell Jones, obviously he took over in the Sugar Bowl, as you see right here, to help them beat Alabama that year. But what a season. There's a picture of Marcus Mariota, your Heisman Trophy winner that year. And that is a wrap on the 2014 season. Our final top 25. Here's the Associated Press's polls, both, of course, Ohio State, Oregon, TCU, Alabama. That was the top 4. Florida State, Michigan State, Florida State. They kind of flip-flopped 5 and 6. Baylor, Georgia Tech, Baylor. They flip-flopped. Both had Georgia 9th, UCLA 10th. 11th, one had State, one had Missouri, Arizona State, Mississippi State. Both had Wisconsin 13th. Missouri, Arizona State, Clemson, they both had 15. Both had Boise at 16. 17, one had Ole Miss, one had Arizona. UC Kansas State, Arizona Ole Miss, USC Utah, Utah USC, Auburn Marshall, Marshall Auburn. Both had Louisville, both had Memphis. All right, so I'm going to try to do this as quick as I can because we're almost at an hour and 40 minutes of this. To close out, I'm going to give you, for my non-football segment, real quick, my top 3 Sylvester Stallone movies, as he just celebrated his 80th birthday this past week. So happy birthday to the great Sylvester Stallone. Love this dude. I was not able to get any of the graphics, but there's a movie he did called Driven, which I love. It's a great racing movie about IndyCar driving. I thought he did a great job in that. Of course, The Expendables with all of these guys, Jason Statham, and so many other great guys over the years in those movies. They were good. And then, of course, Rocky. Rocky's the greatest, probably the best movie I know of as far as Sylvester Stallone goes. But I think he did a great job in those. Sylvester Stallone, one of the greatest actors of all time, does a great job in movies. So happy 80th birthday to him. And that is that. Alright, guys, we have been going. Holy cow, I did not know it was going to go this long, but I guess I put a lot of stuff into this show. Alright, appreciate y'all checking me out. That's our show. Thank y'all for watching. Nearly 30 viewers. I'm cool with that. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. Maybe we'll have some stuff from ACC Media Days, and we'll do a couple more schedules, and we'll talk about a few other things. All right. So as we close out, 1 Timothy 6, verse 12: Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold lay hold on eternal life, whereunto thou art also called, and hast professed a good profession before many witnesses. Fight the good fight of faith. I love that, man. But that is your Bible verse to close, 1 Timothy 6:12. All right, guys. Thank you, College Sports Villains. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Brennan, for my intro and outro video. All y'all that shared my stuff, thank y'all so much. Appreciate y'all checking me out. We'll do a show next Thursday, and like I say, here in a couple of weeks, we're going to 2 shows a week. So the season is fast approaching. We're in talking season. Next thing you know, fall camps will be open, and then next thing you know, we'll be kicking this thing off in Ireland. All right, guys. Thank y'all for checking me out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there. God bless.